Hello, everyone. I hope you are all doing great today. And for this week's learning session, we will be discussing the introduction to food and beverage service operations, or F&B service operations. And we have the following objectives for this topic. First is to be familiar with the beginnings of the F&B industry, as well as the categories, the different varieties of F&B service, the characteristics of F&B operations, and also the organizational structure of food and beverage department, the different job titles and responsibilities of each staff, and also the attributes or the characteristics of an F&B service staff. The discussion points are as follows. First is the categories of food and beverage service industry, the different classifications, the types of F&B service operations, the meal experience, F&B service organizations, and also the attributes of an F&B service personnel. To start with, we have two categories of food service industry. First is the commercial one, and second is the institutional one. The commercial establishments operate because of profit through the sale of food and beverages. On the other hand, the institutional catering, they provide a volume or a bulk of food and beverage service to institutions such as factories, schools, military, and prison. And the commercial food establishment started at during the 1600s, and in England they are referred as coffee houses. And by the 18th century, there were approximately 3,000 coffee houses in London alone. And I'll be showing you an example of what a coffee house looked like in England. This one is a coffee house. Here's to the first London coffee house, which is in 1652. The term restaurant, as we know it today, began in 1765 in Paris, France. In 1765 in Paris, France, because before that, inns or lodging accommodations are the first establishments offering catering operations offered to public. So, because of that, several caterers formed a union or a guild that is to protect their interest from competition. So, when you want to have a catered food and beverage service, you go to inns and lodging accommodations. But one day, there is one soup vendor who created a soup made of sheep's foot and white wine sauce. And he was seen as a threat to the caterers' union, and that is why he was summoned to court by the guild for alleged competition. However, the court ruled that this specialty dish did not compete with any dish that they are preparing, which is why the vendor was allowed to continue serving sheep's foot and white wine sauce. That vendor's name is Monsieur Boulanger. So his name is Monsieur Boulanger. He served sheep's foot and white wine sauce. And because of this publicity, Monsieur Boulanger became famous, and even the King of France wanted to taste the specialty, which created public commotion. And Monsieur Boulanger labeled the soup as Le Restaurant Divin, which means the divine restorative, coming from the Latin word restorare, which means to restore. And this gave us the word restaurant. And then in the US, the credit for the first restaurant goes to Delmonico, which is established in New York City. This is the first family restaurant in the US, and it was established in 1827. The Delmonico family operated 9 restaurants, and it was known for lavish banquets and extensive menu of 371 dishes. And as the economy of US progressed, fast food restaurants started in the US in 1920s and 1930s, and White Castle restaurant is considered the first fast food restaurant in the United States. But now, McDonald's is considered the largest fast food restaurant in the US and in the world. So this is Delmonico. This is the first uh, family restaurant in the US. This is the location. Then this is White Castle, the first fast food restaurant in the US. And of course, this is McDonald's, the largest fast food in the US and in the world. Now, let's go to institutional catering, or the provision of food and beverage in institutions. They started during the Industrial Revolution, wherein Mr. Robert Owen, and he is called the father of industrial catering or institutional catering, he was disgusted by the exploitation of workers in the British textile industry. So, the Industrial Revolution brought so many advances and economic boom in Europe and the United States, specifically in UK, wherein Mr. Robert Owen saw how poor the situation was with the workers from that textile company or that textile mill, wherein there is no place for these employees to have their lunch or to at least have a snack or a proper meal, which is why they spend the entire day working, and then they will only be able to eat at the end of their shift. So, meaning more than 8 hours will pass without them being able to eat. And that changed when Mr. Robert Owen started to provide an eating room for the workers and their families. And because of that, the workers are greatly motivated, and thus their productivity increased. And it was very successful that this system spread out throughout the world. So in the US, they followed suit, and then they provided lunch rooms wherein the employees can sit down and have their meal. And then it was followed by the offering of the cafeteria service, introduced by the Plymouth Cordage Company in the Massachusetts in Boston. So the cafeteria service is much like the cafeteria service that we have nowadays, wherein there are many tables, and then you choose the food that you want to eat from the counter, and then you get the tray, you get your food, and then you find a table to sit down, and then you eat your food. So that is pretty much the same setup. And a cafeteria has a counter offering pre-cooked meals, and then you choose according to your budget, and you eat by sitting in a free seating area. So there is no reservation in a cafeteria service. And it was found to be convenient, especially when workforces had to consume their meals within limited lunch break. And also, institutional catering was started in hospitals, and they were known in India and Egypt as early as 600 BC, as well as in Greece and Rome. And in Europe, the first hospital was Hotel Dieu in Paris, built in 600 AD. And then, in Mexico City, Spanish explorer Hernando Cortes founded the first hospital on the American continent in South America, and the Spanish government of Hispaniola built the first hospital in 1503 in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. And then back in the US, the first incorporated hospital was Pennsylvania Hospital, which received its first charter by Benjamin Franklin in 1751. And now, the offering of diet for therapeutic purposes became important only in 1800s, wherein Florence Nightingale is credited to be the first dietitian and the creator of the modern hospital. Food preparation in the US was the responsibility of the cook. Only when nutrition was recognized for the purpose of health recovery did hospitals look at specialists to prepare diet food. So, again, it was started by Florence Nightingale. In schools, there is no record of school food program through schools existed in early times. In Oxford and Cambridge University, they provided lodging but no food. So students had to go to local communities or to hire servants for them to provide food. And in America, in 1776, 10 universities were established in the American colonies, and food service started just in 1800. And in 1935, the US Congress first made federal funds available to subsidize school food programs, which focused on nutrition for growing children. And that is the practice in the US, wherein cafeterias in schools, located in schools, really they subsidize food coming from the government. And it is really meticulously programmed according to the dietary needs of the children. So now let's proceed with the different types of F&B, or the classification of food and beverage. For food, we can be classifying them according to cuisine type, according to particular specialty, and according to the method of cooking. For beverages, we can classify them as non-alcoholic beverage and alcoholic beverage. And because of that, we have so many varieties and different types of food offerings found in several and many restaurants. But the question now is, what motivates these people to dine out? Or what motivates you to go to a restaurant to enjoy a specific meal that you are craving for? What would be your answer? And let's say, in your own opinion, what motivates you to go outside of your house, go to a preferred restaurant of your choice, and actually make a purchase and dine in with your friends or with your family? Here now are the types of food and beverage service. So the term restaurant is very general. It is a term used to cover a wide variety of operations, and it can be further classified depending on the price, the level and type of service, the decor, the style, the cuisine types, and also the different types of service. First, we have a bistro. So a bistro is usually a small establishment with tablecloths, such as this one, and chairs are made of wood, bent wood chairs, a cluttered decor, and a friendly or informal staff. All right? And they tend to offer honest, basic, and robust cooking. A brasserie is a larger establishment. It is a styled room. It's more sophisticated compared with a bistro. It has a long bar, and usually they serve one plate items, wherein in one plate you have several dishes already. You have carbohydrates, you have vegetables, you have meat, all in one plate. So that is a one plate item. And it is often possible to just have a drink or a coffee or a snack, and it is served by waiters, often in a traditional style of apron and black waistcoats. So that is a brasserie.